So reports are circling saying that Ray Ford v Oshaki Foster is close to being confirmed. Of course, this would be for Oshaki Foster's WBC 130-pound belt. He'd be defending it following a successful and dominant win against Stephen Fulton Jr. That fight was at 135 pounds following Stephen Fulton missing weight, but no doubt this next fight will be at 130, where Ray Ford has been campaigning at for the last couple of fights following his one and only loss in his career against Nick Ball, where he lost his WBA Featherweight World Championship. In that fight was close. Ray Ford boxed well at times, but Nick Ball just outmanned him, had too much aggression, had too much of a high punch output, and ultimately over the course of 12 rounds, it was too much for Ray Ford. But since then, he's had 3 dominant decision victories over 3 fighters at 130, 3 decent contenders. Granted, I don't think any of them are really at world level, in my opinion. None of them are really regarded as, top guys at 130. But again, there were 3 wins on the bounce, 3 dominant wins over 10 rounds, 3 10-round decisions, where he boxed really well over the course of those 30 rounds of boxing, and him getting a world title fight against Oshaki Foster actually does make a lot of sense to me, in my opinion. It'd be 2 American boxers who are technically very good, can be tricky at times, can be slick at times. Oshaki Foster, in my opinion, is one of the top guys at 130. Proved that against Stephen Fulton, where even though we know Stephen Fulton wasn't a true 130-pound fighter, I think everyone's expecting if Stephen Fulton was going to go up to 130, he'd be able to compete at that level. And Oshaki Foster showed us that maybe he can't. Oshaki Foster boxed brilliantly in that fight, and I made a ton of videos about that, saying and praising Oshaki Foster, saying how good that performance was, saying how impressed I was, because I was picking Stephen Fulton to win this fight. I think Stephen Fulton is a very good boxer. He didn't have a good performance on that night, but Oshaki Foster didn't let him have a good performance, right? But comparing Nick Ball and Oshaki Foster, you can't really do that when it comes to Ray Ford, because they don't fight similarly at all. I do favour Oshaki Foster if that fight does get made. But Ray Ford definitely has paths to victory there, because he's a tricky boxer, and if he can almost do the opposite of what Stephen Fulton did, in terms of not be passive, in terms of be sharp in there, be first, put Oshaki Foster on the back foot. But Oshaki Foster's a very talented boxer, and he can box on the back foot. We've seen him do it a number of times. He had 2 close fights against that Cohen Traces guy, the Brazilian Ruben guy who beat him once. But he had 2 close fights with him. They were competitive fights, but that guy is much more of a brawler, and Oshaki Foster can be drawn into a brawl. I don't think that's his default. But when he's in there with a guy who's, forcing the issue, which I don't think Ray Ford's really like that, to be fair. Ray Ford's not one to really force the issue like that. So I do think both guys have paths to victories. I expect it to be in a competitive fight if it is made. It's a fight that makes sense, a fight that would be very competitive in my opinion. But I do think Oshaki Foster, he's been there, done that now at this level for a while now. Not to say that Ray Ford hasn't. Ray Ford is a former world champion in his own right, and is on a good run of form as well. 3 unanimous decision wins on the bounce against guys who aren't scrubs. Sure, these aren't the top guys at 130, but you look at their records, these aren't bums. These aren't tune-up fights necessarily. These are sort of fights that are testers to see, okay, how much has Ray Ford still got left in the tank? And he's passing those tests. So again, makes sense for him to fight for a world championship, and it's deserved. I do think Oshaki Foster is a good enough boxer to retain his WBC Super Featherweight Championship on this occasion if this fight gets made. I think he's going to have too much, in terms of too many weapons, because Oshaki Foster can operate at all distances. He can operate inside, he can operate mid-range, he can operate outside as well. He's slick enough to make any range work for him. And I think, like I said, he's got too many tools for Ray Ford to handle, but very competitive fight, because Ray Ford's no scrub, and Ray Ford can be tricky as well in his own right. I'd be curious to know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think if this fight gets made, Ray Ford could become a 2-weight world champion and take that WBC Super Featherweight Championship from Oshaki Foster, or would you expect Oshaki Foster to successfully defend his belt? Let me know in the comments below. Another episode of the Seth Soto Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.